Stand in the sea until the water reaches your chest. For most of human history, that is as far down as anyone ever got. So what did they think was under there? Mostly, they did not think about it at all. That sounds like an insult. It is not. You only picture a thing after somebody tells you it is there. Nobody had told them there was a floor down there because nobody had ever stood on one. So they answered a different question instead. Not what is down there, where does all this water go? So let's start 4,000 years ago in what is now Iraq. These are the people who invented writing, and they lived on dry land between two big rivers, which means they knew something you might not. Dig down far enough almost anywhere and you hit water. They gave that underground fresh water a name, the Absu, and they built their oldest temple directly on top of it on purpose. The deep place is under your feet. The sea is a completely separate thing, and it is salty. Egypt goes further and says, the water is not under you. It is everywhere. Their story is that before anything existed, there was only water, and the world is a bubble sitting inside it. So there is no seabed in that picture either. There is just an outside, and you are not in it. The Greeks are strangers still. In their oldest poems, the ocean is not a big pool, it is a river. A single river that runs all the way around the rim of the world and joins back onto itself. An old Chinese book comes closest of all. East of the sea, it says, there is a hole. Everything drains into it. It never fills, it never rises. Which is close, but it is still not a bottom. It is the plug hole in your bath. And then there are the Pacific navigators, the best sailors who have ever lived. They steered by stars, by the shape of the swell under the hull, and by which birds went which way at dusk. Every single one of those is information from the top 3 meters of the sea, the most complete ocean knowledge on Earth, and none of it is about down. Now let's talk about the one man who actually tried to check. Aristotle taught in Athens about 2,500 years ago, and he measured everything he could. He ranked the seas by how deep they were. He was already assuming there was a bottom to rank. And then he wrote the single most honest sentence in the early history of the ocean. There is a place, he says, where nobody has yet been able to find the bottom by lowering a line. He is not saying the sea is bottomless. He is saying his rope is not long enough. The tool he was using barely changes for 2,000 years. A lump of lead on a line with a cup of sticky fat in the bottom. It comes back up with sand or shell or mud stuck to it, and the sailor reads the seabed the way you read a page, because past a few hundred meters, the rope starts lying to you. The line is heavy. Once enough of it is hanging, the rope's own weight beats the pull of the lead, so the rope keeps running out after the lead has already landed. You feel nothing. You count the marks. You write down a number. So here's the whole story as one piece of string. A ship 500 years ago carried about 400 meters of line. The open Atlantic is around 4,000 meters deep. You are fishing for the floor with a shoelace. 1818. A British captain finally pulls up mud from over a kilometer down. There is a small starfish tangled in the line. Nobody believes him because he had recently reported a mountain range that does not exist. Nobody paid for any of this out of curiosity. A company wanted to lay a telegraph wire across the Atlantic. Now we get to the part where a scientist makes it worse. Edward Forbes collects sea creatures for a living, and he is very good at it. He drags a net along the seabed of the Aegean, which is the sea between Greece and Turkey. Every bucket he pulls up from deeper has less alive in it than the one before. So he draws the picture you would draw. Depth going across, animals going up, and the line slopes down. And then he does the thing. He puts a ruler on that line and carries it on past the end of everything he actually measured, down to nothing. Below about 550 meters, he announces, the sea is empty. Nothing lives down there at all. He had never been that deep. His net had been to about half that. Now, the easy thing is to call him an idiot. Do not. He was dragging a net through one of the emptiest seas on Earth, and the net had holes big enough to lose the small things. Given that bucket, you would have drawn the same line. What went wrong next was not the drawing. It was a rule about proof. Animals kept coming up from below his line, on sounding ropes and stuck to cables hauled off the seabed. And every time, the answer was the same. It could have grabbed on somewhere shallower on the way up, so the good evidence did not count because of how it arrived. So, let's go and haul a broken telegraph cable out of the Mediterranean. 1860. A wire laid 3 years earlier between Sardinia and North Africa has stopped working. A crew hauls up about 70 kilometers of it from over 2 kilometers down. It comes up covered in living things. Oysters, clams, coral. Nobody on that deck is a scientist. They are annoyed and they would like you to know they have a broken wire. And on it there is one small coral whose base has grown into the exact shape of the cable. Read that again. It did not grab on somewhere shallower. The wire it is holding did not exist 4 years earlier. It settled down there in the cold and the dark, and it grew. The rule about proof had nothing left to say. Within 10 years, a borrowed paddle steamer is pulling live animals up from 4 kilometers down. Then a Navy ship called the Challenger has most of its guns taken out and laboratories put in where they used to be. It sails for 3.5 years and comes home with about 4,700 species nobody had ever seen. So let's go down there ourselves. 1977. 3 men who study rocks in a steel ball, 2.5 kilometers down. The water outside goes wobbly, and the light lands on clams the length of your forearm. Red-tipped worms taller than a person. White crabs with no eyes at all. And the thing they are all eating has never once used sunlight. It runs on chemicals coming out of the rock instead. An entire living world that does not need the sun. Which brings us back to your side of the screen. We have now mapped about 29% of the seabed, and mapped means sonar from a ship, not eyes. The share anyone has actually looked at with eyes or a camera is smaller than 1,000th of 1%. Forbes had a torn net and one poor sea. We have had submarines for 65 years. You're not standing at the end of this story, you're standing about where he was.